The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What's that? It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
9. Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
Alabama back on top of the college football world.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to the final Football to the Max of 2016, right on the dot, on the 31st. We are recording this thing right after the Orange Bowl has finished, and a thriller of an Orange Bowl it was, after Florida State had gotten out to a big lead, and then Michigan closed the gap, and Florida State had to score with 36 seconds left. So we'll be talking about that as well as some of the other bowls that have happened, including my Arkansas Razorbacks having a dud of a second half against Virginia Tech and then losing. And then, of course, we'll get into the college football playoff and those New Year's Six bowls as well that I'm sure everybody is awaiting here later today. And of course, as well, we'll get into NFL Week 17 and some interesting news about another playoff, maybe. Who knows? But of course, Gary is with me. Randy is not here. He is working. We did not do this on the regular day because some schedules conflict. Basically, Randy fell asleep. We stayed up too long waiting for him, and then we were tired. So it kind of happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you can't control, especially when everybody's on a little bit different schedule. And, when we do this show, we are all of America time zone wise. I mean, Sean's on the East Coast, I'm Central, and of course we got Randy who is West Coast. And it makes for a fun time trying to schedule this thing. For the most part, it works out. And,
But it wouldn't be possible if we had it, where Randy was anything but West Coast because he couldn't stay up. That late probably.
Exactly, but I mean it's good, and I really wish Randy was here, but I totally understand he's working, and hey, it happens, and so I'll say it this way, Sean. At least he doesn't have to worry about breaking down this week 17 of the NFL season. That's pretty much like breaking down week 1 of the NFL season, and not only that, he gets the fun part, talking about the bowl games instead of kind of predicting. So
yeah, that's true. Very true there. So might as well go ahead and talk about this Orange Bowl. I don't know how much you got to watch. I know you were busy in a hospital and everything. I watched some of it, not all of it. Dalvin Cook again went over 100 yards. DeAndre Francois, who threw the final touchdown there. To Naquan Murray, who also had 2 touchdowns on the day. Michigan again rallying through here. Jake Butt is hurt. He has a possible MCL or ACL tear there, which doesn't help him at all for next season. But man, Florida State squeaking by here. One of the few that I got right on in this pack of games that we predicted previously. But yeah.
Yeah, and I got to give you all the credit in the world because you kind of, saw some of the writing on the wall. And, I was just buying into a little bit more of the Michigan hype. I really felt like they were prepared to come into this
Well,
game.
one of the big things here was Jabril Peppers got hurt pretty much right before the game
Oh,
started.
see,
So.
and that's a big deal. So, things just didn't line up the right way for Michigan. And, I still think they're an excellent team. But it is hard to beat a Florida State team that is determined, especially with a great situation that they find themselves in with a great talent in Delvin Cook. I mean, he did an excellent job, making his way in this game, and of course, not really just blowing the world away, but he had good production, and that opened up things in the other parts of the game. So I think that at the end of the day, Florida State showed that, people have been underrating them at times. I mean, we gave them a lot of love early in the season in the top 25, a lot of love. And then we kind of just, once they lost a couple of games, we kind of said they're done, nothing about them. And they found themselves way back up here. And I'm glad.
We gave them a lot of love afterwards, too, once they started beating teams again and some of the other teams faltered because they're still a very, very good team, and they showed it here. In this game, deserving of that number 11 ranking.
Yeah, definitely the deserving, but I didn't really give them as much credit, and I was probably one of the guys that deterred on giving them the credit again because I really was not sold. And I thought they were a good team. I thought they were a scrappy team, a team that could find them, themselves out of holes. But at the end of the day, I walked into this situation thinking Michigan's got more talent. They're more prepared. And I was not buying it, but now, looking at this, I was completely wrong. And not that Michigan's not good. It's just that, I think that I oversold them in my own mind. So, Florida State, they did everything they needed to do. They did the right thing, jump on top of Michigan immediately, get out there, and make them have to work for it. They did that, and that got them the win.
Yeah, certain points you're sitting here going, oh man, maybe they were right. Michigan not even getting the snuff for the playoff here the way they were playing. But, it's such a amalgamation of so many things with these bowl games because you get so much time off. That can either hurt you or sometimes be a blessing, getting your teams back healthy. Having your best player be out for the game, that's a shock to you, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that allowed for Florida State to have an easier time on the offensive side. So, but hey, you know what? Big props to Florida State for getting that win here. Stanford's defense shows up in this game, and they actually get the win. They denied North Carolina from getting the 2-point conversion at the end. And Stanford was a surprising one, even though Christian McCaffrey didn't play. So, that was one I thought, okay, North Carolina's got this one in the bag now. No, they proved they're still a very good team without McCaffrey.
Yeah, you know what? And what's funny about this is I was really considering changing my pick. I really did because of the fact that McCaffrey was not going to play. We knew this going into the game. And I didn't, and, I can't really say why I didn't. I'm a huge person that kind of goes by, sometimes gut feelings. I know it's weird. It's not always logical, but I just do. And another thing is I didn't pick my Tar Heels. I'm a big fan of the Tar Heels outside of the fact that I love my Texas Longhorns more. But I still, I'm up on North Carolina sports and athletics, and I had to go against them, and I ended up coming out right on this. But at the end of the day, it really was up to the rest of that Stanford team to do it, and they did it. I didn't change my pick even though I wanted to, and they pulled this off. And you got to give them credit because losing your best player and not having him there to get you through this game, it's a big deal. But there's also a reason that Stanford was ranked, and it is the fact that they played a lot of good games this year. They proved a lot, So and McCaffrey wasn't healthy the entire year either, so they overcame that during the season. So.
If you're North Carolina, it also helps that the referee caused the fumble against you. So.
Yeah, sometimes things happen that way, and I just kind of feel like things weren't meant to be for North Carolina in this game. I really, really do. Looking at this and this whole thing, I kind of felt that way. So, yeah, and Stanford to get, congrats to them.
Certainly. South Florida, this was one hell of a game. Seriously, if you didn't watch this, you missed out because South Florida and South Carolina just went at it in this game. South Florida jumped out to a big lead in the first quarter. South Carolina tried to keep pace, and then they basically made a big comeback in the third and fourth quarters to tie it up and force overtime. And then South Florida gets the one touchdown and winds up winning, which would be indicative of their season. South Florida's had one hell of a year with Clinton Flowers having 3 touchdowns in this game. Jake Bentley, 3 touchdowns through the air, almost 400 yards passing for South Carolina. But, I mean, just hats off to the Gamecocks for staying in this. And even more hats off to South Florida for winning.
Yeah, South Florida has been a sleeping giant for me. I think a lot of people undersold them this year. And I think, every week at the end of this, top 25 season, I was sneaking them in the bottom of my rankings. Now, don't get me wrong. I was not a proponent of them being higher than maybe 23. But, I still felt like they deserved to be in the conversation of the top 25 in the country. And, other teams like Navy, kind of push them out of the way. But I look at this and say, yeah, this is a proof in the pudding that this team is solid. And they have a lot of good things going for them right now. And, when they come into a game like this and maybe people don't think that they're still going to win, they kind of, maybe look at them as the underdogs, and they just prove us wrong again. So, this is an awesome game. I didn't get the chance to really watch it complete, but I have seen highlights, and I'm kind of really jealous of you, Sean. I really wish I would have been able to watch this entire game.
This was definitely a fun game to watch. Oklahoma State blasted Colorado because, again, unfortunately, their Colorado's quarterback, Luefu, or Luwaifu, I'm sorry if I'm saying his last name wrong, gets hurt early, and Oklahoma State basically just takes advantage. Mason Rudolph, 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. James Washington almost gets 200 yards of that. Just Oklahoma State doing what they do and looking impressive again.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I picked Oklahoma State, and I just felt like that Colorado had kind of reached the end of their momentum, especially with the quarterback situation being what it was. And so, I mean, you can't take anything away from a great season. Colorado really put it on people, had an excellent season. That's the way these bowl games are working, though. Injuries are taking effect on these bowl games. Coaches leaving, different things like that affect these bowl games so much. So I don't think this says anything bad about this team, but at the end of the day, I mean, Oklahoma State just did such a great job. You got to give them credit.
Josh Dobbs has had himself almost you could say a Lamar Jackson type day. 4 touchdowns total. I want to say 400 yards or so total offense, rushing and passing. And Tennessee winds up winning 38-24 over Nebraska. Tennessee gets a little bit of redemption after faltering early in the season, then kind of hitting a wall after playing some terrific teams. Nebraska also undefeated and then kind of hit that wall as well. But good to see Tennessee get that win.
Yeah, Randy, he made it clear that Nebraska was not going to be the team to win this. Really, honestly, they have not been that. They've been impressive to an extent, but they have not been overwhelmingly impressive. And so I think I still said no. I still think that Nebraska is going to do this, but they just couldn't do it. Tennessee, they came in and were victorious, and it was surprisingly to me because think about it, Sean. This year.
Wow. Hold on, I'm going to cut you off. Ronda Rousey just lost in 48 seconds by TKO. She's pretty much retired now. They pretty much made it known that if she lost again, she was done.
That is, I know this is not an MMA podcast. This is a football podcast, but I want to say this really quickly. I get the decision. It saddens me because Ronda Rousey is such a great story, and what a competitor. It is sad, but at the end of the day, sometimes you're done, and maybe she is. I don't know, Sean. I mean, I'm not a big MMA fan. I don't watch a lot of it, so I'm not going to be able to sit here and talk about the logistics.
If you paid some big money for that pay-per-view, I'm sorry for you.
Oh, you'd feel like I did when I bought that Tyson pay-per-view back in the day.
Oh, I did that too.
That was $60 in the toilet with all my friends around to hang out, and we all just sit there. Oh, that was what we paid for? Great.
Yeah. Hey, let me watch somebody fight somebody's hero. I think my dad never bought a boxing fight again after that.
I don't blame you. But it's one of those things. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, Sean, but Ronda Rousey, got to give her credit for all the great success she's had. But maybe it is the time for her to move on.
Yeah. But good to see Georgia get the win after a hard fought. This was really close going into the fourth quarter, but then Georgia pulled away. Nick Chubb have himself over 140 yards day on the ground. Nothing too pretty from Jacob Eason or anything, but you got Chubb on there doing his thing. Georgia wins, and the SEC picking up wins late after not really being able to get too many wins early in the bowl season.
Yeah, exactly. Really quickly, I just want to quickly finish my thought on Tennessee. I was just want to say that Tennessee was a team all this early in the year we saw get close and then find ways to win the game at the end, and then they started to fall off that pattern, and that's where their kind of down spiral began. So that's why I didn't come into this, this game looking at Nebraska as being an underdog. I really thought Tennessee probably should be, but they did a good job. They won the game. It ended up being, a pretty decisive win for Tennessee. So you got to give them the love. And yes, that's Georgia game. I really felt like Georgia was going to win because TCU is not the TCU we knew. That is not the same program. And Gary Patterson does a great job as a head coach. He really works hard to have a great football team, but they've had some scandals and some issues when it comes to players and, their off-field things. And so at the end of the day, Georgia's just a better team right now. That's why they won.
Yeah, certainly. Air Force blew by South Alabama, and I already mentioned that Arkansas had a heck of a first half and then blew it in the second half. Virginia Tech blowing it open and never looked back. 35 unanswered points, just ridiculous. For Arkansas to just completely implode like that, that's really sad as a Arkansas fan. So,
yeah,
just wanted to point that out. But I think the thing people care about more here is what's going to happen in these college football playoff games here. One at 3:00 and then one at 7:00 Eastern time. Alabama taking on Washington in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. So, they were in Atlanta for the SEC Championship game, and Alabama gets to go right back there again. Oh, boy. That's not good for Washington, number one. And number two, this is going to be either a complete and utter blowout or it's going to be one of these surprisingly close games. Because Washington has not faced a team like Alabama all year. And, Alabama tends to struggle with teams that can actually score. And we know Washington could do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point here. And I could see where we'll, start the game out where, Washington has some success. I could see them going up 7 pretty quickly, maybe even 14. But, man, I look at Alabama and I look at all the factors. And it's the fact that, man, this team knows how to succeed. They know about being in these playoffs. They know about being in big games. And not only that, their defense is good. I mean, their defense is really good, and I could see them coming up and eventually choking off some of that offense that Washington usually has. And I think that they can slow them down a little bit. And at the end of the day, I think, be a close win. I think that they can pull this thing off. Even if it is a close win, I still see that Alabama pulls away towards the end of the game. And, if you want my honest opinion, I don't know. I hate to say this because I love Washington's pick. I love them being part of this, but I almost see Alabama winning so decisively that people will start questioning this whole playoff and saying, well, see, you let a smaller school like Washington in and, look what happens.
I mean, look, it's a Power 5 team. It's going to happen when you get into the 4th slot, and Alabama's undefeated for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it's one of these things where, hey, look, Alabama has been the best team in the nation all year for a reason. They have taken out their competition. Yeah, they've had some close games, but they wound up finding ways to win. It's really difficult for me to sit there and say that Washington is going to win this game. I do think it could be close just because, again, I think if Washington can, and they play pretty good defense, if they don't let the game become too big for them, if Jake Browning gets in there and understands, hey, this is Alabama, we're not going to let Alabama just walk in here and intimidate us, and they play their game, keep it close, let's see what happens. If Alabama gets out and punches them in the mouth, they're done, and might as well book that ticket for next week.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I'm not trying to root for one team over the other. I'm not saying that because, I just look at this as it's going to be hard for me not to root for Washington because, it's that awesome thought process of, man, we could see a team like Washington enter into the national championship game, and who would have thought that would happen? And not only that, you'd have a team that really, came out and proved that they were better than all the teams that they had faced in a decisive fashion for the most part. Not every team, but for the most part, every team. So that's exciting, but I just look at Alabama. I look at Nick Saban, that coaching staff, and the way that they've made this team a well-oiled machine. When it comes to the NFL, who else do you think about that's like that? That's the New England Patriots. No matter what happens, year in and year out, the Patriots are in the playoffs. They're always the Super Bowl favorite that they're going to be in, at least. Even if they're not favored to win the game, they're favored to be at least reach that final championship game. Same with Alabama. And I do fear that Washington is going to start getting nervous if they get behind and it becomes too much for them. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just the way I see it right now.
Yeah, I got Alabama winning this game. Probably by a couple touchdowns.
I think we agree.
And we do have a probably much more interesting game in the nightcap for Ohio State taking on Clemson in Glendale, Arizona, University of Phoenix Stadium. Ohio State is favored by 2.5 here. But, I think, honestly, Ohio State, they are definitely a team that has overcome a lot of odds. They've gone out there and obliterated some teams as well. They suffered that tough loss against Penn State. Clemson had that weird loss to Pittsburgh that they probably shouldn't have had, but hey, it's tough to go undefeated in a season. To me, this comes down to Deshaun Watson being better than J.T. Barrett. And I think Clemson's defense is actually a little bit underrated. A lot of people said, oh man, they lost too much from that defensive line last year. I think they've just been not maybe equally, but just under a hair, just as good as last year's team. Ohio State's defense is pretty good, but I think at the end of the day, Clemson's just going to have too much firepower between Wayne Gallman and Deshaun Watson. And those receivers that not a lot of people talk about to get that win.
Yeah, and, the way I look at this whole thing, and this is going to be one of the most fun games to watch, and it's got to be. But I think at the end of the day, I think you're right about the quarterback situation. I look at Ohio State, though, and I hate to say it this way once again. I don't want to be repetitive, but I just feel like that they have been there. They've done this. Clemson's been there too. I'm not saying that because it was obvious last
Here
year.
just last year.
Yeah, so it's not like there's, but Ohio State's a program that's used to this. They're there,
Urban
they've got
Meyer's
a
been there many times.
exactly. You've read my mind. Urban Meyer has been there, done that. This is no surprise. This is nothing that's overwhelming him for sure. It's important to him, but I'm sure he can sit in his office a little nicer than whereas Clemson and their coaching staff has to sit there and say, "We lost this thing last year. We can't lose this year." So this is a little bit more stress for, I think, Clemson than it is the Ohio State Bucks. And so I come into this game, though, thinking this is going to be a close game. But for me personally, I just think Deshaun Watson's a good quarterback. I really do. But I don't know that he can overcome this. I think maybe he falls a little short here. I think Ohio State is going to find a way to win at the end of the day. And if it could be Barrett, or I think anything else, even this defense for Ohio State could step up and really make Watson's life a hard, hard day. So I'm going to pick Ohio State. Is it a good pick? I don't know. Is it a comfortable pick? No, it's not. It's a pick that I'm going to go by the seat of my pants, but I don't know. I just don't know if I see Clemson in a rematch against Alabama.
Yeah, I do see it that way. We'll have to see what happens. But Ohio State definitely has a lot to prove with people thinking maybe they didn't deserve to be in, they didn't win a conference championship, whatever. You get to that playoff championship against Alabama. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that is for the next week. They do have a few more games on Monday as part of that New Year's 6 that I talked about earlier. Probably the least look forward to game is Florida and Iowa, two 8-4 teams playing in the Outback Bowl in Tampa, Florida. Florida, who hasn't had much offensively this year, and Iowa, who at times with their running back tandem has had a lot on the offensive side, but they're very defense oriented as well, just like Florida is. Florida's favored by 3 points here. You know what? Give me Iowa in this game.
I like your guts, but you know what? I'm going to go with the rest of this whole people who bet and all that. I'm going to go Florida. I just, man, as much as I want to root for the against Florida, I can't, and not in this matchup. So give me them. And not only that, let me say this too. I think I'd rather go to the Outback than watch this game, though. I'm just saying. I don't know how exciting it's going to be.
You definitely, by the time you got to the Outback, all these games would be certainly over.
Yeah.
So at the Cotton Bowl Classic, which is played in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, home of the Dallas Cowboys, Western Michigan taking on the defense-heavy Wisconsin Badgers. Do you think Western Michigan pull it off here? I mean, this is a total contrast of styles. You got the offense-heavy Western Michigan and Wisconsin, who's had one of the best defenses all year. The line is 8.5 for Wisconsin.
I hate to go with the line again, but I think Wisconsin can overcome. Western Michigan is a team that's going to give them a little bit of problems. I think that they're going to, put some things on the field that maybe, Wisconsin hasn't seen yet. Because, honestly, that Western Michigan team is just, it seems like, one of those surprisingly efficient teams. And I know it's weird to say, but they just sometimes just find ways to get down the field. And that could surprise Wisconsin, but I don't think too much. I think Wisconsin can stifle things. I think when they get to the red zone, it's going to be field goal city for Western Michigan. And that doesn't win you games. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin.
I do want to make the point that Florida State lost in this game last year to the Group of 5 team. So that is something that, Houston beat Florida State last year. Boise State beat Arizona the year before that. Can Western Michigan make it 3 years in a row? They definitely can. They have the offense to do it. Wisconsin does not have an offensive juggernaut of a team to be able to keep up with them points-wise. But that's the thing. That's why they rely on their defense, and that's why they rely on Corey Clement to kind of take control, keep possession, grind it out. And I think that's what Wisconsin's going to do. Like you mentioned, Wisconsin has a team, especially on defense, that Western Michigan's not going to have seen it all this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to give Zach Terrell some frightening looks he hasn't seen. And is he going to be able to cope with that? I don't know. I think Wisconsin, as much as I hate to see it, because I really want to see Western Michigan do well and I want to see them end the year undefeated, I think Wisconsin's going to wind up winning this game.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think at the end of the day, you may see more points scored in Wisconsin's bracket for interception touchdown, punt return touchdown, things like that, compared to them actually, using their offense. So it would not surprise me at all.
And then we have USC taking on Penn State. In the Rose Bowl, of course, one of the marquee matchups of this entire bowl season. USC favored by 7. Penn State has had one heck of a run, and I think Trace McSorley definitely has the ability to get Penn State through this. But USC has been such a different team this year. After they switched quarterbacks, I think I got to go with USC here.
I have to look at my picks again. If I picked I think I may have picked Penn State though, because I think Penn State's, once again, people have been rooting against them. People have been, picking against them at times, and they find ways to win games. Like, give me Penn State. I'm going to take a flyer here. I totally agree. Logic tells you that USC has the best opportunity to win this game. Like you talked about the quarterback, I think this team has really made a turnaround. But you know what? I love Penn State's guts. I love the fact that they won their conference. Yeah, give me Penn State.
Yeah, and then we get the final game here is the Sugar Bowl between Oklahoma and Auburn in New Orleans at the Superdome. Oklahoma favored by 3. I feel like I got to take that with Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is a better team than I ever gave them credit for, and they've shown it. They've shown it at the end of the season. I think it's going to be hard for me to pick against them. I really do believe in that team. It could be a knockout, but I could be wrong on that. But I just think Oklahoma can come in here and possibly dominate.
Yep, I think Oklahoma definitely can come in here and dominate. Auburn's been a really good team this year. I just think Oklahoma's a better team. Mm-hmm. And with all the controversy going on with Joe Mixon and everything, I think they're going to want to get everybody's focus away from that and onto the game and onto Oklahoma, the football team. So, well, before we get into NFL stuff, Gary, there is this news report that came out yesterday about a potential Group of 5 playoff being bandied about by some Group of 5 officials and athletic directors and whatever. There are other athletic directors and officials that do not want this, citing that we're playing the Junior Varsity Championship now, or just saying, hey, we want to be seen as part of the people that can be in that national championship game, even though they probably will never get in. Western Michigan had a terrific, Houston probably had the best. Had they gone undefeated, they probably would have been in. But Western Michigan didn't play the teams that Houston did. But, it's really hard to say that a Group of 5 team is going to ever get into that with all the big names and all the way they have to do for the Power 5 conferences. Would it be a bad thing for the Group of 5 to have their own playoff?
In the great scheme of things, I don't really consider it a bad thing. And the reason I say that is because we look at this in the bowl season, and like I was telling someone the other day, these bowl games at times can be a joke because really at the end of the day, do they matter? What's it really helping? There's so many of them that it's more quality over quantity, quantity over quality. Excuse me, I'm saying completely the opposite. Quantity over quality. And I think another playoff for, especially for bowl season, would be good. I think, anytime you have something up for grabs, anytime you have something that at the end of the day means something to these teams, I think it's a good thing. I don't have a problem with it. I can understand where people argue against it, but for me, I have no problem with it.
Alrighty.
I mean, how do you feel? I mean, what do you think about that?
It's one of these things where just I kind of get both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be seen as a junior varsity. You don't want to be seen as, hey, you're less than the Power Five. You shouldn't be taken in the same, because that is kind of what you're doing, right? If you make this playoff, you are admitting we're never going to get in the national championship game. We are not the same as the Power Five. We want our own playoff because basically we're making our own Division II within Division I because we want to be recognized. Even though there probably will never be a national champion against a Group of 5 champion. We probably won't get that game to decide really who is, the best or whatever.
Yeah.
I also get the Group of 5's notion that, hey, look, we're never going to get this recognition. We feel like we have some really damn good teams here. Why not fight it out and see who is the best one? I'm never going to say no to more football. And I'm sure there will be a channel that will be willing to pay money to have it, especially if they have an 8-team playoff that the national championship team doesn't have. If you have 3 at-larges and your 5 Group of 5 champions, which the problem is the best Group of 5 team already has to play in a New Year's Six Bowl. So would you want that contract to be killed when that gets you a lot of money for this playoff that's probably not going to get as much money as even what that one team gets for the New Year's Six Bowl? So that's something you got to take into account. I definitely totally see what Northern Illinois Athletic Director Sean Frazier is saying about, look, the committee's not going to put a Group of 5 team in that playoff. Mm-hmm. They're not. At the end of the day, they're just not. Hell, they wouldn't put a Big 12 team in, or TCU and Baylor. They couldn't decide between TCU and Baylor before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just, for me, I see it. I see that point. I also see the other ones that say, look, we're not doing this. We don't want to tarnish. Let's see what he says. It's an emphatic no. Hold on. Jeez. Yeah, basically an emphatic no. We don't want this. This would be stupid. We compete for national championships like anyone else in the FBS, including the Power 5, and have no interest in any kind of separate championship. This is the AAC commissioner that said this. So you got dissenting opinions on both sides. So that probably means this is not going to happen because you've got such emphatic, it's either no or yes. I mean, again, both sides make good points, but I don't know. You are kind of calling yourself saying, okay, we're accepting that we're less than the Power 5. Let's just have our own championship.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I really, really do. And it's something you don't want to, put your team in. You don't want your team to be JV, like you're kind of putting that out there. And I understand. I really, really do. I know I went to a small college that's, a major university, but a small college. Yeah, and it's I would love to see my team. They would
be in that because Conference USA is part of the Group of 5.
Exactly, and that's exactly my point, is the fact that just to think that, man, my team, North Texas, would never ever get an opportunity to be a part of a national championship, it's kind of sad. I was kind of thinking, man, that's just underwhelming. On the other hand, I don't know. They would have to really overhaul. I mean, like every other game outside their conference would have to be in Alabama, would have to be
Yeah, but who they're
all
never
these
going to
SEC.
beat. So,
Yeah.
it's a once in a blue moon that you're going to beat them.
Exactly, but my point in that is you would have to play the bigger guy. You'd have to play in Ohio State. You'd have to play in Alabama and beat those teams before they even considered you in that playoff. In the national championship playoff, they would never consider you unless you played a schedule. And North Texas is never going to play a schedule that's going to get them ranked that high. They're just not.
Yeah.
And so you would have to literally, all your non-conference games would have to be an Alabama, an Ohio State, a Penn State, teams that, would be considered higher and more valuable.
I mean, you'd basically have to do what Houston did.
Yeah.
Go play in Oklahoma and go play, who was the other team that they beat, and then they lost to they went and played Louisville and beat them.
Yep.
You'd have to do something like that, but then you go and lose to SMU. I mean, so
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really do much when you get whooped by SMU.
Yeah, that's a slap in the face right there. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So this is a yin and a yang situation. There's really not a right answer at this moment. But at the end of the day, I lean more towards the Power Five having their own, only because I just know they're never going to get a fair shake unless their schedule lines out to where they can do, like you said, Houston and some of these other teams that will play.
State,
Yeah, they'll have to play those major teams, those teams that catch eyeballs. They get ranked every year. You've got to find those teams, and you got to play them, and you got to beat them. You can't just play them. You got to beat them.
Oh, definitely. Well, Oklahoma figured that out this year. You have to beat them. You can't just play them. But, I mean, Randy had a funny take on this. He said, if the NCAA allows this to happen, then what's the point of the NCAA? If you have two different playoffs within the NCAA, why do they even exist?
Yeah, true. It's a good point. It really is. And, looking at that, I mean, it makes complete sense. Like I said before, though, I mean, I just don't see there being any opportunity for these teams to get a chance at the national championship. They just are not going to get it. And unless you change this system, or unless you do something different, which I don't know if you can change the system.
Which they can't till 2026 unless they kill those contracts.
So I maybe we're going to go in circles on this, but at the end of the day, I lean right now towards them actually doing it. Maybe it's me waving a white flag and giving up, and I hate that, and I don't want to do that.
They're not going to change that system either.
Yeah.
The Power Five wants the control to be able to say that the four teams that are going to be in that thing are Power Five teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another thing that you have to come across as well. Are they going to even let Group of Five teams in the thing? And the answer is probably no.
Mm-hmm.
So, these athletic directors and all that say, "Oh, we compete for a national championship." No, you don't. No, you don't, and you know it in your heart of hearts. You know you do not. Okay, because if it comes down to it, the committee is not going to pick a Group of Five team. There's too much pressure. There's too much all that. They're not going to pick them. This is not like March Madness. You don't get 68 teams. You get 4. And they already had a problem with, do we even pick Washington? And that was the major thing. Like, Washington won a championship. They were the leaders of the Pac-12 for almost the entire year. Like, they deserved to be there, but there was still conflict about should they be in or not. And that's the problem. If you can't ever get the 4 straight up and say, okay, these are the 4 that we believe in, there's no controversy, and that's it. Well, imagine if they would have put a group of 5 in there. Imagine if Western Michigan was there as number 4. Or even Houston, if they had gone undefeated, I think they would have had a tough time putting them in.
Oh yeah. I agree wholeheartedly, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't really know if there's a win-win situation for them. The group of 5, I think, either is going to have to come to a conclusion that it's not fair, and they're just going to have to deal with it, or they're going to have to change the system. And it's hard. I mean, Randy's got the good point of changing it. Is this the NCAA, or are we? Is this not? Are we dividing it? Do we need to call them different names? So, I don't know.
So let's get into the NFL. Week 17, the final week of the season. For a lot of these games, they don't count. So we may not even really cover. I mean, that's up to you if you want to talk about them. But
they count for some teams. There are still teams fighting for playoff spots.
I know. I'm just saying there's quite a few games that do not matter in this.
Yeah.
In this whole thing, might as well start with our Cowboys here, Gary, to get it out of the way. Playing the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. This is a divisional. I mean, all these games are divisional games. The debate rages on here. Now, reports are that Tony Romo will play at some point in this game. How much he plays, what will his role be? All that kind of stuff is interesting, or will be interesting. We kind of talked about this already, but how much do you play Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, your starting receivers, Ashawn Lee, and how much do you play Romo? Do you bring him in a situation where he's going to throw the ball? Or do you bring him into a situation where I think it's pointless if you're going to do this, but bring him in a situation where he's just going to go in there and hand the ball off?
You know what? The answer to that question doesn't even depend on just looking at the clock. I think that situation depends on how well the Dallas Cowboy offensive line plays. And why I say that is because there's a good chance that we're looking at 2 spots on the left of this offensive line that are not going to be starters, that are going to be backups. And when I mean backups, they are backups. And so that's really dangerous for a guy like, Tony Romo, who has been injured, every time he's been on the field the last 2 years. And is that going to be a concern? I'm sure it is for the Dallas Cowboys. If this offensive line sticks together, they're able to protect, maybe not as well as the starting offensive line does, but at least they can do their job. I think you'll have Romo out there for at least maybe fourth quarter. Let him close out the game for you. But if this offensive line is not protecting Dak Prescott, they yank Prescott quick, and it's Sanchez getting killed, you may see Romo 2 series. But if they are able to pass block well enough to at least get him a shot, I think you see Romo probably in the fourth quarter, at the earliest mid-third quarter.
I personally think you're going to see Romo earlier. I don't think Sanchez comes in before Romo. I think Romo comes in after you. Whenever you decide to pull Dak, whether it's the first quarter, whether it's after the first couple series, if you're putting in Romo, it's so that he gets actual in-game action, not so that he comes in and maybe does something, maybe doesn't. I mean, if you're going to bring him in the fourth quarter just to say it's the fourth quarter, what's the point?
Well, nothing changes really. I mean, here's the difference that could happen. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and Dez Bryant have all been linked possibly of leaving together. Now, that may not be the case. The Cowboys may just take out Dak and Zeke, which is fine. But if you're going to leave a Dez Bryant, that's fine. But really, honestly, this game does not change with any of that other things, the stuff going on. It's not like the offensive line is going to be better in the first half compared to the second half.
Okay, let's say the Cowboys are down 7 and it's the 2-minute drill. Don't you want to see Tony Romo run the 2-minute drill?
Oh, yeah, that's why I want to save him for the fourth quarter, though.
It's the fourth quarter. Like, I'm talking about you want to score before halftime. Why not?
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I would not have a problem with them doing it earlier. I'm just kind of going by the logic of, is this offensive line going to protect? If it's not, you're going to see
Oh well,
Sanchez
no,
before you do it.
definitely. If Dak's
But
running for his life half the game
yeah,
when he's in there, then you might have to consider. Okay, well, I don't know if we want to bring Tony in here because, for one, the Philadelphia fans aren't going to care. Okay, so it's not like you're at home and you got the fans chanting for him and all that kind of stuff. You're probably not going to get that. You might still get a bunch of Cowboys fans at that stadium. I don't know. But, I mean, you've also got defensive linemen who were there last year with, Tony hurt. They know his vulnerabilities. They have paychecks that get more money when they get more sacks and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to have something to play for, you'd imagine. That's the better side of Philadelphia this year. And it's a side you don't really want to mess with. So I do worry about that if I'm the Cowboys, about how long do you leave these guys out there, and is Romo going to be in some kind of danger with who's coming at him and who's blocking for him. So
and that goes back to when I was saying about the fourth quarter. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. If the offensive line is protecting well, I want to see Romo from the second quarter on. Or if nothing else, give me the entire second half. I don't care. I would love to see Romo in there an extended period of time to give him that chance to actually get some in-game reps. I think it's important. I think the Cowboys are a little bit nervous that Romo's going to hurt himself, not physically, but hurt himself with an image, because if he does not come out and have a good game and pass the ball around effectively, show that he can do it, that could affect not only his trade value, but even his value just amongst people, even if he was released. And I think they want to give Romo the best opportunity to get out there and woo another team into signing him. So at the end of the day, I would love to see Romo do well. I hope he does well. I'm just very concerned because the Cowboys are not going to come out and not try to win this game, but they're not going to allow injuries to hurt them. So if they start to see guys getting banged up, they'll just run the ball till the clock's out.
Yeah, probably. The Eagles are probably going to want to go 7-9. Looks better than 6-10. So that's also something to think about as well for them.
And the Cowboys do have something to lose here. Their franchise has never been 14-2. Never in franchise history have they ever had that record. So them winning would be an important thing. And not only that, if Dak Prescott does start this game, that would put him over Big Ben as the winningest rookie quarterback. The best record a rookie quarterback has ever had. So
I'd much rather get what Roethlisberger got in the playoffs than whatever that record is. But we'll see. We'll see when that time comes.
I'm going Eagles. Eagles, though, for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say the Eagles as well. Another game that doesn't matter, and this one, has no implications thanks to the Ravens losing on Christmas night, or Christmas afternoon, sorry. So it's the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals. The Ravens have been the better team. I'll take the Ravens.
This is 89% Steve Smith's last game, and which is a joke because his number's 89. But
right.
Yeah, he's done. I mean, he's going to leave, and that's sad.
I don't
but
know that that's true. I think he might be persuaded to come back.
His kids definitely wanted to play. His kids have told him vehemently they want to see him still be on the field. So we'll see. I mean, this may not, but this is what he said recently. Going by that, though, I want to say that the Ravens are going to play their hearts out to give Steve Smith a win at the end of his career. I just think that Baltimore is, just like you said, Sean, a little bit better team than we get out of the Bengals. And so I'm going to go Baltimore on this. I think the Ravens have a great chance to win.
Another game that doesn't matter because the Texans are locked into the 4th seed with Tom Savage going savage in And Tennessee, with Tennessee having whoever the hell the backup is for the Titans, I don't remember at this point. I know they're ruling out some defensive players for the Texans, but honestly, Houston kind of finds ways to win sometimes in these kind of settings. I'll give the edge to Houston on this one.
Well, this is a game where, I know at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Houston's in the playoffs. And so, they could start, resting guys, doing what they need to do to get better. I still think that Tennessee is definitely a solid team. But, them being without Marcus Mariota really does affect them. It gives them a difficult time because of the fact that they cannot do what they like to do best, and that's do a play action and do some of the things that Marcus Mariota really is good at because he can move around the pocket. But at the end of the day, I look at this and I think that honestly, we look at a Houston team that their defense is just too good. I think that they'll be able to shut down, DeMarco Murray, anybody else that comes out and, gives them a tough time. But, I totally understand where, people would say, well, no, Tennessee's still good. They can win. I don't know. I think Houston has the opportunity. Matt Castle is the backup for Tennessee.
Matt Castle is he's so bad.
Yeah. I mean, unless, if I'm hearing wrong, I mean, they do have another backup, but, and that is, of
Matt
course,
Castle
Alex
would be the
Tanney.
guy.
Yeah, I'm just telling if they for some reason chose Alex Tanney, he's still there. But yeah, Matt Castle is the quarterback, so that's another reason to say Houston wins.
Tampa at home, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, seriously, I think they win this game anyway, but they have to have so many things happen for them. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not happening. They're done. Sadly for the Buccaneers. I still think Tampa Bay wins this game, though. Cam Newton's been playing terribly. Jonathan Stewart has kind of been the guy carrying the Panthers, really, lately. I mean, yeah, he had that. Cam Newton had that one game. But, I think Tampa Bay has been that. They've already beat the Panthers once. It's in Tampa where the Panthers have been pretty decent this year. I would say the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I look at Carolina and say, they've tried to come out and showcase that, we're still a tough team to beat. We're still a team that you need to be afraid of, even though really you don't have to be. But yet, you know what? The Buccaneers have kind of spiraled down a hole that has led them into not being a part of the playoff picture, which is really sad because it was not long ago where we were all talking about Tampa Bay is going to be one of the tougher teams to beat, and they're going to find themselves in the divisional round. We were already moving them up on the playoff picture before the wild card round hit. So they have gone the wrong direction. I don't know. I don't know if the distraction with Doug Martin and all this affects that team. It very well could. I'm going to go Carolina here. I don't think it's going to be a big win, but I think Carolina can win by maybe a field goal.
It's fair enough, yeah. The Doug Martin thing is something to think about here. Another game that does not matter, the Jacksonville Jaguars with Doug Marrone, possibly his last game as head coach here, against the Indianapolis Colts, who are looking to go 8-8. I think the Colts do go 8-8. Look, Doug Marrone looked great last week and all that, but I think the Colts have such a high-powered offense. They're dealing with a much different beast than last week. And yeah, I think the Colts being at home as well is going to play a factor here to try to get even. Also, the Jaguars, if you're the Jaguars, why the hell are you trying to win? You get a better freaking draft pick at this point. Keep making that team. Keep filling that team up with some young draft picks. Why not?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm going to say the same for the Bears later. Like, why?
Yeah. Well, it is kind of surprising, like a lot of these teams, like we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles earlier. I mean, honestly, it would do them better to lose the game so they can get a better draft pick as well. But, I look at that as, as a smart move, if you will say, when it comes to the draft, but a bad move maybe for morale because, players don't come out and play the game to lose, and they don't want to lose. They don't want to come out there and look stupid. So I think Jacksonville is going to end up getting their wish with the draft picks more than they will this victory. So I don't think that's an issue, but I don't think I'd ever come out and tell a team to lose. But at the end of the day, I mean, I really feel like that Jacksonville is going to have a tough time beating the Colts. I think the Colts are going to, they're going to want to have at least a record that's not losing. So they'll probably win.
So let's go ahead and get to another game that doesn't matter here. The Chicago Bears taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. I think Minnesota being at home where they played much better this year. Sam Bradford possibly playing his last game as a Viking. Who knows if they're going to want to try with Teddy Bridgewater again. I think Minnesota's going to win this game. Matt Barkley has performed admirably, but he throws a lot of interceptions. Bears have not won a game away from Chicago this year, which is also telling. The Vikings are tremendous at stopping the run, where they stopped Jordan Howard. And, again, why Bears? Get a high draft pick as possible to try to get you that quarterback you need.
Yeah, and I think that, it'll work out that way anyway, once again, just like Jacksonville. I look at Minnesota, and they've definitely kind of taken the Tampa Bay route. They've spiraled out of control. And, this is so far from what we saw earlier this year. Earlier this year, they were the favorite. I mean, this was the team we all had either ranked in our number 1 or 2nd spot in the power rankings, and now look where they're at. And, you got to feel for him. Sam Bradford has definitely not been the guy that they really hoped he would be. This defense has been good, but, it has also kind of, had some moments of, we're not as good as we want to be. So, and of course, this offense for the Vikings is terrible. But at the end of the day, I just look at this as they're too talented not to beat Chicago.
The Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets. Apparently, Todd Bowles' job is probably safe for this year, while Rex Ryan already fired. This Jets team has been weird. Sometimes they come in and they play their hearts out and they win, especially being at home. That's something to think about here, where they actually have only won one game this season. Or you get the Bills, who perhaps try to go to 8-8. With all the turmoil there, you have to wonder if that's going to be a big distraction. I still think Tyrod Taylor has a lot to play for here. It's funny that Sammy Watkins and LaShawn McCoy both came out and said that Rex Ryan was scared of them. He didn't have enough discipline for them. That's certainly interesting, but I don't know. The way the Jets have been playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick being terrible, I'm going to say Buffalo still wins this thing.
Yeah, and you may not be wrong. I think Buffalo has a great opportunity. You know why I say the Jets win? I say the Jets win because they're going to be facing E.J. Manuel, not Tyrod Taylor. So that's a situation that scares me. I think that, even though the Jets have not been great, I think they can beat E.J. Manuel. So give me the Jets.
Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams. This game doesn't matter either. Arizona win on the way out. I think Carson Palmer comes back next year, and I think Larry Fitzgerald comes back along with him too.
And I hope they do. This would really, keep this Cardinals team at least together, and hopefully, they can learn and really grow from what they saw this past year. But at the end of the day, this will be a victory for them. I think the Rams, they're just not good enough. They just won't be able to do it.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are locked into their number 3 seed, so nothing can happen here for this game. The Browns, honestly, again, you got your one game, so you're not 0-16. Try to get the lowest draft pick possible. Even without Ben Roethlisberger and all that, I think the Steelers still win.
Yeah, I think the Steelers still win too. I know people are thinking, "Well, quit saying that, Gary," but not about the Steelers, but about this same thing I'm going to say again. It's about talent for me, and if your guys on the bench are probably just as good or better than the other team starters, you're probably going to win. And that's kind of the way I feel. I really feel like even some of these backup players for the Pittsburgh Steelers can make their way and win this game, even if it was in Cleveland. So, yeah, give me the Steelers in this one.
The only game, pretty much, that's at 1 o'clock that matters is the New England Patriots against Miami Dolphins in Miami at the Hard Rock. New England favored almost by 10 points. The Dolphins have been the New England bogey team. This seems to happen almost every year with the Patriots and the Dolphins. If the Dolphins win, they can try to get the 5th seed, which it's the seed you want because you'll be playing Houston, which would give you a much better degree of difficulty than playing the Pittsburgh Steelers again if you're the Dolphins. So the Dolphins are going to be going for this. The Patriots want to continue to go for this because they'll lock up the number 1 seed. I think the Patriots realized last year home field advantage means a hell of a lot, and you want to go for it. I think the Patriots are going to win.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are going to find a way to win too. I think Matt Moore is solid.
Admirable.
Yeah, he's a solid option with your backup situation, but at the end of the day, I don't see him being able to overcome what the Patriots can throw at him. I don't think he can outscore this Patriots offense. And you know what? They are going to rest their players to an extent when it comes to the Patriots, but you're going to see a lot of those starters stick around for at least a little while. Give me the Patriots. It's going to be hard for me to pick the Miami Dolphins right now.
The New Orleans Saints travel to Atlanta to play the Falcons, who are still playing technically for that number 2 seed if certain things go their way. They need to win, and they secure that spot. If they lose, Seattle will get it. And then they put themselves in a whole can of worms you don't want. So Atlanta just needs to go in. Yes, the Saints are going to keep up with them points-wise and all that kind of stuff. But you're at home. You need to do what you do and win this game.
It's kind of funny when you get towards the playoffs. That's usually when Matt Ryan starts to fall apart, and I don't know that it's now. I really feel like the Falcons can beat this, the Saints, but it's just really makes you wonder: is this guy going to stay solid, or is he going to start to kind of crumble? But I think at least in this game we see him succeed. Give me the Falcons.
You have the Oakland Raiders with Matt McGloin at quarterback visiting Denver. The Broncos playing their final game of the season where they can be called world champions. I think Denver's defense is going to be too much for Matt McGloin. Now, Matt McGloin is a serviceable backup, just like, Matt Moore. He's better than Tom Savage, I would think. So it's quite possible you still see the Raiders. I don't think you're seeing the Raiders like you see when Derek Carr, but I think the Raiders can still put up a fight here. I just think the Broncos, he's more apt to make some mistakes. The Broncos defense is going to take care of that. And Trevor Siemian does enough for the Broncos to win.
Yeah, I think he does. And, they're going to play a couple of other quarterbacks. We're hearing that at least they're going to play Lynch, too, in this game, which is good. I think he needs the reps, but... Yeah, I think in the day, switching quarterbacks or not, I think Denver is going to have the opportunity to win this game.
The thing I will say is Oakland wants to win here because you don't want the Chiefs to supersede you and get that 2nd spot, and then you go all the way down to 5th. So that's something you got to look at here if you're the Raiders.
Yeah, definitely. And, I really feel like the Raiders, are going to try to do that. But I don't know, man. I have a hard time believing it's going to work out their way because, they've got to get used to Matt McGloin now, and they've got to make this offense work once again. And it may be a little harder task at this moment.
Seattle Seahawks are going to whoop the San Francisco 49ers. That's it.
Yeah, nothing else. Yeah, nothing else needs to be said.
The Kansas City Chiefs really should just go in and whoop the San Diego Chargers. I know this is possibly the last game in San Diego. Once again, we're talking about this. So don't know what kind of San Diego team you're going to get, which is kind of the way it's been all year. Remember the first week of the season, these two went at it 27-27. It was a crazy game. The Chiefs, much different team now. Their defense has been absolutely just demolishing people. I think the Chiefs know what's at stake here. They could possibly get a second seed if Oakland falters. They'll be playing at the same time, so they're not going to know. I think the Chiefs wind up taking this, though. And no Melvin Gordon either for the Chargers. He's officially been ruled out.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon has been such a great thing for the San Diego Chargers this year, so, I mean, that's a bummer. But at the end of the day, it's not going to matter in this game. I don't know if the San Diego Chargers are really going to have it in them. I just have a hard time believing that they are motivated now. I mean, they've lost, their chances to go to the playoffs. They've lost a lot of momentum. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but I've got to go against them here. Sorry, I just got to do it. So.
The two most important games as far as playoff implication in the NFC. First, you got the New York Giants traveling to Landover, Maryland to take on the Washington Redskins at FedEx Field. Washington, basically, it's win and you're in as long as the Lions and Packers don't tie. And thank God this is soccer, because then you have the conspiracy of would they actually try to tie on purpose. That's happened many times in soccer before, so just bringing that up just for fun. But the Giants are a team that, you never know what you're going to get with the Giants either. It's been the Odell Beckham show for the last 3 or 4 weeks because Eli Manning you can't rely on him. But the Giants defense is really damn good, and they have the ability to possibly win it by themselves if given the opportunity. So I wouldn't count them out in this game. I just think Washington's got too much to play for at home to let this one slip away.
I'm right there with you. And the other thing is that we have to remember that, what we're looking at here is the New York Giants already have their spot in the playoffs, and they're not going to move up or down or anything, around. They're stuck in I think it's the 5th seed. So saying that, I mean, it's all about what's going to be taking place for the, Washington Redskins, and we're possibly going to see, Eli Manning take a break. He may leave the game early, and Odell Beckham may be taking a leave of absence early out of this game.
This is a divisional game, and do the Giants want to see the Redskins get in the playoffs?
You make a good point, and I agree with that. But if Washington's already ahead in the game, and they're really not going to find themselves out of that hole, I don't think they're going to put Eli Manning at risk or anybody else. But I don't know. I definitely think that this Giants team has a good defense, but man, I'm looking at this Redskins team and saying they're going to find every way possible to try to pull this out because they know this is their only opportunity. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with the Redskins.
And then we have the Sunday night game. Basically, depending on what happens in that Giants and Redskins game, it could be a win or go home scenario, or it could be a win, you win the division, and loss, you are the 6th seed, I think. Yes, you are the 6th seed. It's going to be interesting for both teams what the situation is when we get to this game. But the Lions are 6-1 at home. And if there's ever a time to win at home and get a get a home game for the first time at Ford Field ever, if you win this game, if you're you have motivation here up the wazoo if you're the Lions. Number one, you wanted to win the division, so you're not the wild card. Number two, so you get a damn home game for the first time in ever at Ford Field. And number three, so you get off the snide of losing, which they've been on for a little bit here, against the divisional foe in the Packers, who just can't seem to stop, winning lately. The Packers one more game from running the table, as Aaron Rodgers said, and the Packers are 3-4 away from Lambeau Field. So that is something to take into account too. Green Bay favored by 3.5. So is it the buzzsaw, the Packers coming in and winning, or is it the Lions defending home turf and winning the last one?
As much as I'd love the storyline of Detroit comes in after a beating and they just want to prove a point to their division rival, Green Bay Packers, I just don't see it. And I know I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer or to change anybody's mind or anything, but Green Bay has been playing excellent. I think that the Green Bay team as a whole has really rallied around Aaron Rodgers, and they really want to prove him right about what he said about rallying back and going to the playoffs, winning 6 straight. Saying that, I think Matthew Stafford is still injured. I don't think that his hand is completely the way it needs to be. That's not the complete fault here, though. They don't have one of their best corners on defense, Slay. So all this adds up to me is saying they're going to be tireder than the Green Bay Packers. They had less time. I mean, they didn't get into their houses, I think, until 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So they basically have been playing on less sleep, less practice compared to the Green Bay Packers, who had an extra day. They played on Christmas Eve. I think everything just rounds out to being sorry. The Green Bay Packers are going to win. And I think it'd be, in my personal opinion, I think it'd be kind of funny to see the story of Green Bay kind of falter and them not make the playoffs. And this team Detroit has where they were meant to falter and they don't. But I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Green Bay goes on to the playoffs here and Detroit finds themselves out of it because I think the Redskins are going to win.
It's hard for me not to sit here and go with a team that's been hot. This really reminds me of that Packers run where they won the Super Bowl right now. They won this many straight games, if I'm not mistaken, or really close to it. So I think the Packers are going to win. I think they're going to be too much for the Lions. They're going to come in, they're going to score early, and the Lions are not going to have an answer. And, yeah. I hope for the Lions they're not eliminated and that they do back into the playoffs, but more than likely the Redskins are going to win their game, and, it's going to be what it is. But, yep, that's going to do it for Week 17 preview and for the podcast for 2016. Hopefully everybody has a happy new year. Celebrate. Don't be safe. Don't do anything crazy that you regret later. And hopefully these games are entertaining and good, and we get a great last week of the season before we get into those playoffs.
Yep, I hope so too. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, make sure you subscribe to that WTM Network, or you can just find Football to the Max on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, whatever. Go visit WTMNet.com for, wrestling stuff. Going to be doing the top 50 matches of 2016 next week. Top 25 games of 2016 next week as well. There's some football stuff on there too. We'll be doing a final top 25 college poll when all the bowls are over, so you can look out for that as well. And so again, Happy New Year, and we will see you guys later.
Later.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.